And welcome everybody to Around the Fort 2024. This is a new venture for us. We're kind of in uncharted waters, so to speak. I'm Casey O'Boyle with Game Night. I'm joined tonight by our new in-studio engineer, one Jackson Geiger. Jackson, welcome to the cave. And of course, to my left is Jake the Snake Smith. He's got some of his pets with him. Jake, welcome back to the cave.
I have a gut full of B. Antonio's pizza and Five Lakes coffee. Shout out to both of our sponsors. If you were at the Lima Road location, you should definitely stop in and say Around the Fort sent you. Get yourself a cup of Angry Brew or Happy Brew at 300 milligrams per cup per 8 ounces. That will get you ready for the football season, in which we are kicking off tonight. Casey, it is great to be back.
And you probably won't fall asleep till about 2 or 3 a.m. if you do that. Tomorrow. I'm just saying.
Yes.
And then a new twist this year, out in a remote area right now in his truck, will be from Summit City Sports, one Jeff Mahoney. Jeff, are you with us?
I am with you, Casey. Actually now departing your neighborhood. So I think it was a successful night here, getting things established. Hopefully with this new format, we'll be able to bring more coaches on and just bring more football knowledge to the 260.
Definitely. And just a little backstory there, Jeff. For fans of Around the Fort, we're still hoping to give you the same great coverage every week, starting next week with opening night. But like Jeff said, it'll allow us a little more flexibility in terms of who's in studio, when they're in studio, guests, and everything else. And it'll also allow Jeff to work remote because he's busy just like the rest of us. And there'll be weeks that Jeff will be down in the cave, and there'll be weeks that he won't. And we'll have different guests throughout the season and some call-in coaches. It's going to be great. So that's the format and why we made these changes. We're excited to see what this looks like. So bear with us tonight. This is just going to be a very abbreviated season preview, 15, 20 minutes to kind of whet your appetite. We'll definitely bring you a lot more next week for opening night. Jake, I'm going to turn it over to you. Let's just talk briefly a little bit about the Northeast Corner Conference. There's a lot of talent back there, and a couple schools in particular that I can think of. General thoughts on how you see the big and small school conferences shaking down this fall?
Well, man, without trying to get too much emotion into it, I think that naturally small school, probably East Side, big school, probably leaning towards West Noble. What do you think about that?
Well, I think so. I mean, you got Seth Pruitt back for the Chargers.
Yes, absolute unit.
Yeah, he's a stud. I'm excited to see what he does this year. He's on pace to beat Big Brother Brandon's school record for rushing if he stays healthy. And then, of course, you got Lakeland, and there's some star power there, especially with Holbrook back and Carson Mickham and some of those fellows. So that'll be intriguing. Jeff, any general thoughts from you on the NECC and maybe some of those teams to keep an eye out for?
Yeah, I think last year, you nailed it with the two teams that you mentioned, Casey. Lakeland really established themselves last year. West Noble's been doing it a while now with Coach Maywater. You got to love the two Yates kids coming back. Obviously, losing their starting quarterback is going to hurt, but Seth Pruitt is definitely capable as a running back that you can lean on. But they've got a lot of great pieces there. You can see that it just year in, year out gets a little bit better. And hopefully for West Noble, this could be the year they get that sectional championship win over Knox.
Yeah, wouldn't that be great for Coach Mahoney? I mean, we're certainly pulling for them. Another team I want to throw out for you guys, I think the Garrett Railroaders could be a real sleeper team this year. I think Coach DePue's, he's really excited about this senior class. It's not real big, but, man, they're football players. And you got Calder Hefty back, 3-year starter at quarterback and defensive back. That kid is a really, really good football player. And I think the Railroaders – week 1 against Adams Central, don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves. That could be upset alert, in my opinion. I would not be shocked at all if Garrett takes care. Yeah, I'm just a teaser. We'll see next week where that prediction goes, but that's certainly a game to keep an eye on. And I agree with you, Jake, what you said at the top. I think Eastside's the team to beat in the small school division. I don't think there's any secrets there. Coach Brandewie, I think, acquitted himself well last year as a first-year coach. Here's a little tidbit. We hadn't talked about this yet. Coach Mason is back on the
He's back.
staff.
Heard that.
How great is that? And what a pickup,
Yeah.
right? I mean, for Coach Brandewee, and he's not just a consultant; he's a full-time coach. He used to be at Trine first, but it just didn't, wasn't the right fit. And he told me, Coach Brandewee told me that at the photo shoot, and I thought, wow, that's quite a pickup because Coach Mason's one of the best in the business. What do you think about that, Jeff?
Oh, 100%. Great for Eastside and their fans. And, with Garrett building off the momentum of that huge sectional upset last year over Heritage, you're right. Calder Hefty is an absolute gamer for that squad. And, it's funny because talking with the Heritage folks after the game and Coach Kalkman, they just said, hey, that's Coach Depew for you. It seems like he just steps up and just does a phenomenal job of getting his guys ready for those big games. And obviously with the defensive schemes that he comes up with.
Yes, and Coach Depew, going back to his days at East Noble, they always seem to be playing their best football at the end of the year, and last year was a great example up there for Garrett. So I think that's a sleeper team for sure. Oh, the deaf dog is making her presence known. All right, let's shift gears, guys, real quick. AC Snake, I'll turn it over to you first. I mean, this is an intriguing year because Adams Central graduated a boatload of seniors, the guys that went to now 3 consecutive Class 1A state championship games. They still got plenty of talent, but a lot of new faces and names. Any chance somebody like maybe a Heritage squad could usurp the Adams Central Flying Jets?
No. Not at all. AC is still going to reign king, man. I don't care if they graduate everybody. They're still going to. I mean, look at the power rankings. They got moved up a classification, and they're still ranked top 3 everywhere I've seen. So
juggernaut.
They're a juggernaut. It's just too tough to go against them.
What would think about again? We're looking a few months out. If they had to play Indy Lutheran again,
wouldn't that be insane?
Straight year in a state championship game now in 2A. And if they fell short again, it'd be like, holy mackerel, what does this team have to do to get over the hump? And, I think it just speaks to how powerful that Indy Lutheran team is. And truthfully, they probably could have won 2A or 3A last year, in my opinion.
No, I agree with that all the way. Yeah, It's just, I don't know. I mean, not to say that somebody's playing for second place, but in your opinion, Casey, who's the next best team that would follow them?
I think it's Heritage.
I would agree with that.
And I think Jeff probably would back, and then of course Charlie Riddle. I mean, gained 40 pounds. I mean, the kid is massive. And there's a few others. Zeke Litchfield comes to mind. Good tall athlete at tight end. They've got some nice parts there. And I did see them in a scrimmage a couple of weeks ago against Bishop Dwenger, and they more than held their own. That to me would be the team that if anybody in that conference, I think Bluffton takes a step back.
Agreed.
Because of graduation, although they've got some great young talent, including Camille Moore. I think he's primed for a huge year. Jay County could be a little better than last year. I think Coach Zagunda's done a nice job there. You always know South Adams with Coach Mosier is going to put together a quality product. And then Coach Woodland, with Brock Robacher coming back into the coaching fold. That's a big enigma. What are the Woodland Warriors going to look like this fall? Jeff, what are your thoughts about the ACAC?
Yeah, I mean, number one, Adams Central, they got it going on to a Snyder, Dwenger type level. I mean, they have really established themselves really for last 40 years almost, Casey. But I like what you said about Jay County. I see them taking a step forward with head coach Grant Zagunda, and I can see where that team right there will be vying for ACAC championships here in the near future.
Yeah, I think so.
I believe they're the largest school in the ACC too.
They are.
ACC.
I think I think, and then maybe Heritage is second biggest. But I agree with you, Jeff. I think Coach Zagunda is a proven winner. He's won everywhere. I think it's just a matter of time before they get into the conversation. Adams Central, though, Coach Mosier has just done a phenomenal job just keeping that program, above everybody else. Obviously, they have a tremendous feeder system, and that's part of the equation. But it's still a small school. Granted, a 2A, but because of success factor, it's still a small school. And every once in a while, you get some pitfalls in terms of a class that maybe isn't as deep as what you're expecting. I don't know if that's this year. They had 15 seniors, and all 15 seniors came to the photo shoot this year, which was really cool.
Awesome.
And and they were great kids, and there's some really good football players still there. So we'll see. I would, if I had to pick, I'm going with AC, but by the same token, I think Heritage would be that team for me that might pull off the upset. Let's
and Casey, just to add one more thing, that when you go to these practices, all these different teams, you're not going to find a more structured practice than you're going to find at Adams Central. Once again, it just mirrors something that you're going to see at like a Snyder High School.
Yeah, and I remember, Jeff, you talking about that last year, I think, when you went down for Summit City Sports and did a report on them, how you marveled at, this is a 1A program, but how they operated at such a high level. So that's a good point.
Very little wasted time.
Yes, very efficient. Let's talk Northeast 8, Jeff. I'm going to just come right back to you. Are you good driving? You're not running any stoplights or anything? Are you speeding or?
No,
please tell me you're eating some pizza.
I got 1 mile left before my gas tank runs out, so I'm stopped here.
There we go.
Okay. Well, if you check out, we'll know why. Let's talk Northeast 8. Jeff, we'll let you start. I'll set it up. I think most people feel East Noble Leo. It's a 2-horse race now because of graduation to New Haven and some of the other schools. Columbia City maybe as a dark horse. What are your thoughts? Who's the front runner out of the gate in your opinion?
East Noble's by far the front runner. Last year, what game was it? Ever since Dylan Krell, I'd say halfway through the season, really put that team on his shoulders with the heart that he has, the leadership that he has in the locker room, and the ability to get it done on the field. They did lose a lot at East Noble, but I feel like they returned their best player in Krell, and I think Biddle, the quarterback, is going to be vying for Conference Player of the Year. Now, I know Brock Schott is an amazing talent. There's no doubt about it. One of the best players to come through Northeast Indiana. But I really feel like Dylan Krell is more valuable to his team than, even a Brock Schott is to Leo.
That's quite a statement. Snake, what are your thoughts on this conference?
Yeah, you've got to beat East Noble and Leo to get kind of up on that pedestal repetitively. And I agree with what Jeff's saying. I think it's Leo and East Noble. And then I do still agree that my Eagles would be a dark horse. I truly, just knowing the program like I do, I think that the Eagles are probably a year away. I think that they're going to get the line where it needs to be another season out. Now that you have a lot of nice pieces, running the flex bone offense, there's going to be a lot of different ball carriers that are touching the ball. You do got starting quarterback coming back in Grayson Bradbury. That's all great. So I wouldn't sleep on the Eagles. I think they're going to be up there. I think Norwell takes a step back. I hope Belmont wins a game or two. DeKalb's always going to be in there along with Huntington North, but I think the two stalwarts at the top of the class are going to be East Noble. One thing that I like to hear is
East Noble and Leo.
East Noble and Leo. At least the scuttlebutt around East Noble is they're going to stick to that kind of H-back spread offense under their new coach, which I think is great.
Yep.
I agree with Jeff about the quarterback position up there. So I think what it comes down to is, Leo has great pieces with Schott and Hepner. So for Leo, it comes down to how quickly can the new quarterback get acclimated? And then for East Noble, how quickly does the new coach and his staff kind of get acclimated? I do know Coach Ty Lawson, Traction AP running backs coach, is also coaching the backs and maybe the freshmen up at East Noble now. So he came from West Noble. That's a huge pickup for them. And when you're running a lot of stuff with like H-back power and a lot of running backs with guys like Krell, if I had to give an edge, I would probably say to East Noble by like a minuscule amount, ever so slightly. So that's going to be a really fun conference.
It'll be a fun conference. I can get behind that logic.
Case, sorry to interrupt, guys. I'd just like to add that in Northeast Indiana, the past 5-6 years, there is no better rival as far as two teams playing each other and producing great games to watch than East Noble and Leo.
Meaningful games, regular season and playoffs, and we've been witness to a lot of them. Yeah, for sure. That's a good point. A couple other thoughts here before we switch gears. Landon Hepner, of course, joining Stratton Fuller at Army. What a great pickup for the Knights, right? The Black Knights. Landon Hepner, might look for him in some Wildcat situations this year, especially as the Lions are kind of unveiling a young quarterback. Would not be surprised at all if in week 1 at Bishop Luers we saw a lot of Landon Hepner in that capacity. Huntington North, Coach Eschbach, the Vikings. I'm excited to see if they can turn the corner a little bit this year. They came to the photo shoot for the first time, and that was kind of cool to see them. And I got a new helmet. It's not out here. It's somewhere. We'll show it next week. So thank you, Coach Eschbach, for that. New Haven, there's another new coach. We talked about new coaches. Vance Shear, you know, a young guy, offensive-minded. I think he's going to do just fine. It may take a little while because, my goodness, you talk about graduation. Think about all the seniors that played for New Haven a year ago that are now, you know, studs like Mylan Graham and James Hardy, you know, Trey Bates, Donovan Williams, and we could go on. I mean, there's Mason Knock, right? I mean, unbelievable what graduation did to that program, and then to lose your coach in late July. But if anybody can turn that program, I don't want to say turn them around, keep them on track with all that is against them, I think it's a young guy like Vance Shear. I think he's going to be great.
Absolutely agree with that.
And I think Norwell will be fine. Small senior class, Coach Gerber. Again, he's a proven coach, game night coach of the year a few years ago. I think they'll be okay. And to your point earlier, you know, Belmont, I think, has lost 22 straight games. Can't help but root for the Braves to get a W this year, because Coach Hall is such a hard worker and a great traditional Belmont guy. Played on the 2008 state championship team. He knows what it's like to win, and he's poured his heart and soul into that program. And you can't help but pull for the Braves. Yeah,
and you know, it's tough when you're talking about a conference that the school that you coach for is involved. Obviously, I'm always going to be biased to my Eagles, but it is one of those things as we go through the different conferences and we talk about everybody else like the SAC and such. You want to see everybody at least get on the board. I want to see Belmont win a game this year. They've come so close. Last year they had a real nail biter that got away from them on a special teams gaffe, and I hope that it just as the season goes on, you can't in the Northeast state. The one thing about it is you can't sleep on teams like DeKalb and Norwell. And even though we say, or I would say, that Norwell maybe takes a step back this year just from some different graduating pieces. You know, my buddy Coach Adam Harder's a line coach up there. They are not going to take anything off. They're not taking anything for granted. And obviously, being a Columbia City guy, we can't take that for granted because look at last season.
Yep.
They bring a solid program every year. And I think that's what I like about the Northeast state the most. A lot of county programs, a lot of 3 and 4A ball out there. And yeah, I'm excited to see what they do this season.
Yeah, for sure. All right, guys, last but not least, let's talk a little bit about the Satchel. I call them the Satchel, the SAC, the SAC. Summit Athletic Conference. Jeff, I'm going to turn it over to you. I'll set it up. You got Luers returning state champs, Snyder returning state champs, co-champs last year with the new format in the SAC. But for my money, I think the Carroll Chargers are heavy favorites to be the cream of the crop this year. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I would like to think that, but something about last year, Casey, I've got Carroll, Luers, and Snyder pretty much neck and neck with Homestead being a 1B. I honestly think that even if we had the old SAC, that Luers could run the table this year against the big schools like a Homestead or a Carroll. Obviously, Carroll's loaded, absolutely loaded on offense. You remember last year they started off a little slow because of the offensive line and some of the losses that they had the previous year. So obviously looking for more improvement from the offensive line over there over at Carroll. But this is going to be a crazy year. I mean, Brandon Logan, Jamarion Calabodi, Adam Blakey, Landon Fry, these guys going both ways for Snyder. You'd never see that at Snyder. I don't know if I could ever name a time when 4 or 5 guys are going both ways, and we'll see how long that lasts or how much it's really needed throughout the course of the season. But yeah, I feel like it could go. I could see Homestead, beating a Snyder again. Snyder beating Carroll, and then Carroll beating Homestead. One of those things where they all kind of knock each other out, and maybe Luers is the only one left standing of those three teams. Yeah, of those 3 teams, Luers will play Homestead. That's it. They don't play Snyder or Carroll again.
Right, and I'm not a big fan of how that works out, but it is what it is. And, you know, you
Yeah.
can't take anything away from Lures. They backed it up then with a really impressive run to another state championship. And we talked earlier tonight over some pizza about that secondary, Jake. And I mean, I can't think of a more talented returning secondary at the beginning of a season as what Bishop Lures has returning this year, you know, with White and Surrey and Felger, and you know, they are loaded there in with 5 guys at that in Woodson. You know, I mean, they're just so good there.
And
that's
Hogue.
a tough opener for Leo. Yes, thank you. That's a tough opener for Leo with a new QB, because those guys are going to be lurking for picks next week. And again, for my money, Lures is going to be right there. They are moving up to 3A this year. They've never won a 3A state championship. All 12 of their state titles have been in 2A. They would love nothing more than to get that elusive 3A crown. Again, I think Carroll's probably, for my money, the favorite. This senior class is loaded, and they've got some good, talented young guys. Jimmy Sullivan at QB, he's got a plethora of weapons at his disposal, like Brady Road at tight end, and many others. I mean, almost too many to list. One team that we haven't talked about yet that I'm close to is the Bishop Dwenger Saints. I don't think they're getting a lot of love out of the gate. And with that schedule, they're not going to get any probably, because they open at Brownsburg and then they come back home and they got Cincinnati Moeller week 2. It's going to be, you know, it's going to be rough. They got pounded pretty heavily by both those teams a year ago, and both are loaded again this year. So if the Saints can, you know, withstand some of those tough losses and maybe get a win or two early against maybe a team like a Northside or something, get a little momentum, they could be very dangerous in the 4A sectional at the end of the year. But they'll be battle tested. There's no question about that. Now, hopefully there's no attrition and they're healthy and things like that. Sure. That'll be part of that equation. Northside, ton of talent. Jeff, we've talked about that sophomore class, but they've got great seniors and more D1 power there for Coach Johnson. So there's a lot of parts there. Here's another school. I think Concordia will be better. I think Southside will be better. I think Northrop will be better. D1 guys at some of these schools. I mean, Northrop's got 2 or 3 D1 receivers for the junior quarterback David Callison to throw to. And then the Wayne Generals, 23 seniors, and a guy like Kamar Nelson kind of leading the way. They've got some really good football players on that team. So I think this is going to be just such a fun year in the SAC for a lot of reasons. I think there's subplots galore. We'll delve into them a lot more next week. But Jeff, I don't know if you want to put a button on the SAC real quick, and then we'll wrap it up.
Yeah, I love how you mentioned the sophomores from Northside, Casey, because I feel like Caleb Kingley could be a breakout performer, probably the newcomer of the year, even though he played a lot last year. He put on some serious muscle in the offseason. Anybody that went to Northside basketball games that saw the freshman team run off the court, you know, before varsity played, saw how big Caleb was getting. And Coach Johnson's done a good job of holding his guys accountable and keeping them in the weight room. So the sophomores, Caleb Kingley at running back, Malik Moore, even last year as a freshman, you know, it's like Keyshawn Johnson used to say, just get him the dang ball, because he has got those intangibles to where he's going to win the 50-50 balls, and he knows how to shield off defenders with his big frame, you know, high point a ball, just make a catch. And then another sophomore is Marion Engel, the offensive lineman, who, from what Coach Johnson was saying, first kid in the weight room, last kid to leave. He was an absolute stud at Northwood Middle School as an offense and defensive lineman. But Coach says he's expecting Marion to probably start at offensive line to help fill the void from losing King last year.
Fun. Well,
real quick, Casey, with that for Northside, keep in mind they lost their defensive coordinator, Coach Thomas Tyrese, now the head coach for the Southwood Knights. That is something big.
Something to keep an eye on.
I do love Coach BJ. Their offense is always a highlight reel. And then, like you mentioned with Northrop, when you're looking at wide receiving rooms across that conference, I think it's arguable between Carroll and Northrop of who would be 1A and 1B as far as receivers are concerned.
Carroll's a little deeper.
Carroll's a little deeper,
the star power out at Northrop.
Yes, a lot of athletes.
Specifically.
And then this for me is, I feel like Southside finally has the right head coach and the right culture coming into that program. And I feel like this is a 2 or 3 win season. This is another building block for them. I don't think this is a 1-win team. I think they've got 2 or 3 under the hatchet, and keep in mind, this is back-to-back Parkview Sports Medicine 7-on-7 champs in their division. So he's
Coach
building.
Goody's done a nice job.
He's done a great job. The kids are buying in.
Are there just tons of – I mean, there's a ton of subplots, and there's a lot to be excited about.
Big time.
With the SAC, all the conferences, but the SAC this year feels like there's just a lot going on.
Big time.
And we're going to have a lot to talk about. So, well, guys, thank you, Jeff, for checking in. I hope you made it to your gas station and you're good to go. We will toil through this from week to week. Thank you, everybody, for your patience as we work out some kinks, but we're excited about Around the Fort and what this is going to look like. Next week, be sure to tune in. We're going to try to start a little earlier on Thursday night, and we'll get some announcement out on social media so you guys can tune in. Until then, I'm Casey for the Killer Jays, Jackson, Jake the Snake, and Jeff remote. This has been Around the Fort, everybody. We'll see you next week.